Jasmine Jones, and I am a licensed clinical social worker, and you are now watching Black Girl, a therapist in the wild, and this little show I like to call Therapist Sips and Reviews. Today we're doing something a little special called early 2000s Rewind, and we are reviewing Black Snake Moan from 2006, and we are sipping on fruit punch and absinthe. For the new people, I am not a drinker, so this is the only time I drink each week, so it's going to be the same thing most likely until I finish the bottle, which is probably going to be a while because, like I said, I am not a drinker. Anyways, how y'all doing? So this is the second time I had to record this. Apparently the first time I had sat down to edit, had my hard drive here, sat down to edit, and the volume, the sound was all fucked up. Recorded this Sunday night. I was just like, I waited 2 days, sat down. Next time, of course, I'm going to check it more. But apparently my microphone finally kicked off into the nethers and died, and so I need a new microphone. But I'm re-recording it, because why not? Let's re-record it and edit it and do it right. And yes, so Black Snake Moan is this movie that came out in 2006 with Samuel L. Jackson in his acting prime, right before he got sucked up into the Marvel Disney industrial complex like they do the actors. And I hate it so much because it takes so much artistry away from these niggas, and then it limits their ability to do what the fuck they want to do with their art. And if you know Samuel Jackson from like the 90s and the early 2000s, this nigga was wild. This nigga was killing motherfuckers in Pulp Fiction while quoting Bible verses and shit. This nigga was on planes with snakes and just random shit. But I'm sure that he cannot be as wild as he was because Disney has a contract, and you can't be doing too much fuck shit when you have a Disney contract, and they pay you a lot of money to make sure that you stay in line. And I mean, I understand the money, but why can't we be like Nicolas Cage? Like, he just makes random shit and it works out, and like, he just does it. I think he's doing it for the art. I really do. Like, every month I see a new movie of his on Prime, and I'm just like, this thing's just out here making random ass fucking movies about random ass shit, and some of them are really fucking good. Just his artistry, just playing with his art. And I just hate that they get sucked up into these giant conglomerate movie production companies, and then they lose their light, like the Fast and the Furious industrial complex. Vin Diesel had a series of movies called Pitch Black and Riddick, and I wanted to see what else happened in that series, but no, because he got sucked up into the Fast and the Furious industrial complex, we never got to see any more fucking Riddick, and it's upsetting. It's upsetting, because he used to do these really cool sci-fi movies. One movie, he was a vampire hunter. I don't know what the fuck that was about, but it was, you know, he really did interesting movies. He had some kind of like, you know, interesting creativity going on there, and you just sucked it up into this fucking franchise. I know they get paid a lot, but like, we lost Ludacris to it. If you listen to Ludacris' first album and his last album, you can tell that the ratchet city girl that nigga was, and now it's gone. So this was one of the very few movies before Samuel L. Jackson got sucked up into that construct. And so let's get into it. So Black Snake Moan is basically like this campy like movie that came out in 2006. Everybody thought Samuel L. Jackson was gonna be doing some freaky shit to Christina Ricci, because on the cover, on the poster, he had a chain around her and shit like that, and everybody was like, what the fuck is this about? So it's kind of ended up being something of a cult classic. Not as popular as, what was that movie? Not as popular as the Megan Fox movie, Jennifer's Body, that when it first came out it bombed because niggas thought it was going to be Megan Fox fucking and doing shit and being a lesbian and shit throughout the whole movie and shit, but it actually turned out to be a woman empowerment movie. It's not as cult classic-y as that because, you know, that's white people. But it is. And now when you look at it, it's like this trauma, campy, deep southern shit going on, and it's the most randomest shit you've ever seen. And I'm not gonna explain away the chaining. He shouldn't have put a chain on her, but you know, you know, it didn't kill her, and she figured out how to turn her trauma into a coping skill at some point during the movie. So, you know, it was wrong, and you shouldn't do that because that could turn into a horrible coping skill later on. Like if you have kids and you're just like, oh, well, you know, it worked for me. Like, bitch, no. But anyway, let's get into it. So we start the movie off with Christina Ricci, and she fucking Justin Timberlake. Her boyfriend in the movie is a young Justin Timberlake, the one that exposed Janet Jackson's titty at the Super Bowl. Justin Timberlake, that one. Well, we're not gonna forget. And, you know, they fucking, and he's about to leave to join the armed forces. I don't know if it's like the Marines or whatever it is, but he's about to leave to join the armed forces, and he's throwing up sick. He got anxiety. Come to find out that he has some kind of anxiety disorder and shit like that. But anyways, he's going to join the army with anxiety, and he has no idea what it is before he joins the army. So he has no idea he has anxiety. He just thinks that he's, I don't know, a sickness. So they call these things, these mental health illnesses in the South, sicknesses, because, you know, I think this is, you know, made during the time that the movie was made, because there's a computer mentioned in the movie at one point, and somebody's niece bought them some cowboy boots off the computer. So, but they're in the deep South in the early 2000s, and smartphones didn't come out till 2007. This movie came out in 2006. I'm sure it was filmed a year ahead of time, like most movies in 2005. So they probably had some flip phones and shit, but they didn't have access to the internet. Social media was MySpace, and Facebook was just setting off, and I don't think we had Instagram yet or anything like that, and YouTube was just popping off and shit. So we have no access to any real information out there beyond the volume of encyclopedias that they used to sell. And the newspaper. And so we were fully controlled by whatever we saw on the news or heard from our neighbors or friends. The gossip we spread or heard from our neighbors or friends. So there's a lot of things that these folks in this movie is not aware of, which does not excuse some of the things that happened, but more so it explains why it was normalized so quickly and made to be okay. And why these people were able to struggle through their traumas and just, you know, I don't know, like just survive, I guess, without killing themselves. So anyways, Ronnie's leaving, and Christina Ricci's character has some kind of like sex addiction, because come to find out later on, she was molested by, I think, her mom's boyfriend, because the way she described him when she confronted her mom later on in the movie sounded like it was her boyfriend, not like her dad or some shit. But I'm not 100% sure. But some man that her mom had in the house was molesting her as a child. When you get sexually abused as a child, what often happens is the child will relate their coping skill to the orgasm, because they have no way to verbalize how they feel, because they're new in the world. So all these experiences that they're experiencing are brand new until somebody tells them something, or they learn something, or they have some kind of experience. And so when you treat children like they're adults and think that they're like purposely trying to do this, that, or the other and shit, most likely either they don't really understand how what they're doing is impacting you. Like they don't understand like how annoyed or upset you're getting around this, or they're copying that shit from some adult they learned it from, or some other kid that they learned it from. And you have to set them straight and communicate with them that, no, this is not the way that we deal with things. So that they can learn a different way, a newer way, a better way. And so for her, she has like this sex addiction now, because when you get abused, sexually abused as a child, you don't have the words to describe what happened to you, to talk about how it made you feel emotionally, especially if you're growing up in a house where no one's explaining to you what kind of emotion, like how, the names to your emotions, like giving you name, like that feeling you feel sounds like embarrassment, that feeling you feel sounds like joy, that feeling you feel sounds like this, that, or the other. If you don't teach the child the names of their emotions, they're going to conduit all that shit through anger, or through very physical expressions of their emotions, like how autistic kids be banging shit and stuff when they get overwhelmed and stuff like that. It's very physical expressions of emotions and stuff like that, because nobody taught them how to name their emotions. And so she basically became overly promiscuous because if you can't cope, your body still wants to feel better. When you've been traumatized, your brain still wants to feel better and it wants to heal. That's what fight, flight, or freeze is your brain trying to quickly heal you from the danger you're in. But if you don't go to therapy or do something about it right after it happens, then every time you get triggered, your brain's just going to keep the switches on, and it does when it comes to trauma, when you turn the switch on, it doesn't turn off. So anytime you feel uncomfortable, you go 0 to 100, fight, flight, or freeze. And so her fight, fight, or freeze was orgasms. As many children that have been sexually abused, their self-soothing becomes orgasms, or they go to the very other end of the spectrum where they don't ever want to be touched. Like, there will be kids that will defecate on themselves because that kept the abuser away most of the time. And so they have learned to do that as adults, like, or learned to have really poor hygiene as adults and things like that because they were abused as a child. And that shit keeps the way you cope with things that make your body feel uncomfortable and your nervous system feel uncomfortable follows you into adulthood. And so that shit follows you into adulthood. And like, you got kids over here, adults that are super promiscuous, or you got adults that don't want to be touched ever in life and will do anything and everything to make sure that they're never touched. And so the work that you do is that you have to give them words to what happened to them, and you have to help their nervous system reset itself and heal and shit. So basically, Christina Ricci in this movie got a sex addiction and she's overly promiscuous. And I like how they displayed it. Like, when Ronnie left, they got some kind of weird ass codependent relationship, y'all. Like, her and Ronnie, like, Ronnie relies, like, literally she puts her titties on his back and holds him when he's having a panic attack, and that makes him feel better. And he's telling everybody, like, oh, she's healed me, she's made me better. And it's like, no, she hasn't. You still have panic attacks, and they're very frequent and they're very intense. All she does is help you calm down when you have them. You still need to be able to do that outside of your own self. You still need to be able to heal outside of your own self. You can't just be relying on only people to heal you, because people get busy. People have their own shit that they need to be doing in life. Like, they gotta go to work. So if I have to go to work, or you have to go to work, and then you got a panic attack at work, then what? Then what, nigga? I'm not around to put my titties on your back. You can't learn how to self-soothe by yourself. Like, you need to learn how to do that, because the person that is going to be with us forever is ourselves. So first we have to fill up the void of loneliness and depression and anxiety with ourselves, because we're always going to have ourselves. Other people are going to die, or like, they have friends and they go to work and they like to do stuff outside of just us. And if we can't handle that, then that's how you become codependent and obsessive and fucking weird. And then people end up not wanting to be around you and shit. Or you end up in some weird ass codependent relationship, and hopefully it's not codependent and abusive and shit. They weren't abusive to each other, but it was just like, it was like they were the air that each other's needed to breathe. And it's like, you can't do that, because it's not healthy, and one of y'all gonna die first. The statistics of people dying, like in a Notebook, where you grow old together and die together, that's very, very rare. Especially with niggas, they be dying first usually, because they don't be taking care of themselves. They be relying on their wives to take care of them and shit a lot of the times. Or they ain't got a wife, they just be letting themselves deteriorate a lot, because we don't teach little boys how to deal with their emotions and learn how to like themselves, because that's the foundation of who you are and shit. So like, you got a lot of men out here that never built the foundation, and so they up here walking on air hoping that they don't fall. So, you know, I hope all these men go to therapy and build their foundation and learn how to love themselves and fill those voids inside of themselves with themselves, and not a bunch of stuff outside of themselves that's temporary, because everything outside of you is temporary. It's either going to rot or die or leave, or, you know, all the things. But we will always have ourselves. And if you believe in a higher power, you'll have yourself and a higher power. That's why it's helpful to have a higher power, because it always feels like there's somebody there with you. You know, when you feel like the human beings have to go to work and they have friends and shit, there's always somebody there that's mysteriously, magically with you and shit. And that's a beautiful thing. Now, if you are atheist and shit like that, well, then yourself. Have yourself. Keep your heart. 3 stacks. Keep your heart. Anyway. So Ronnie leaves, and this triggers her to have this reaction where, like, she just gets hyper aroused, and it's like she's having a panic attack, but the panic attack causes this, like, hyper arousal state. And I like how they illustrate it, because people be talking about how psychological, like, deficiencies and shit like that aren't real. Like, depression's not real. Go to church. I'll show you depressed. Anxiety ain't real. But then when you see somebody sitting on the ground damn near foaming at the mouth having a panic attack because the brain ain't working right, then what? Your brain's an organ. When your organ isn't pumping the hormones correctly, it fucks up with your emotions, and it also fucks up with your physical body. And so you end up having panic attacks, or you end up having high levels of cortisol, which leaves your organs and shit inflamed, and leaves you more susceptible to inflammating diseases like Crohn's disease and cancer and any disease that involves inflammation. Stress makes that shit worse, because stress adds extra inflammation to your insides and shit. And so I like how it illustrated, and then she even described it at some point in the movie. She was like, it feels like this, I have all these intrusive thoughts. So first you have all the intrusive thoughts, and then, like, she starts to feel this burning that goes down her body and into her hands, and it goes down to her, nether regions and shit. And then it's like she has this urge where she has to fulfill it. Now, can she control this? Yes, she can control it, but it's hard as fuck. And not all of us are strong-minded enough to fight the good fight against our physical mental health things. Not all of us are strong-minded enough to fight the good fight against our addictions. Not all of us are strong-minded enough to fight the good fight against the ulcer that hurts in our stomach whenever we have to, like, stand up for ourselves and shit like that. Not all of us are strong enough to go to therapy and work through that shit so that we can start to slowly backtrack those physical reactions in our body a little bit. Not all of us are able to do that. And that sucks for them. It sucks. But as long as you're not hurting other people, and as long as you're not hurting yourself, yes, your body's trying to hurt you as you process and survive, but as long as you're not hurting yourself and you're not putting that shit on other people and becoming abusive, oh, I need to stop these ulcers from hurting in my stomach by hitting my kid in the face, like shit like that. Like, no, because now you're spreading it. Now I have no sympathy for you. I have sympathy because I used to be there where I wasn't working on myself like I was supposed to and shit like that, and I was just letting myself run rampant and do crazy people shit. And oh God, my 20s were horrible. Even a little bit of my early 30s. The obsessions I would get and the shit I would do. I'm glad to have healed, yes, Lord. It took a long time and a lot of work, but it's worth it. I tell you what, you have more control of who you are in your life, and everything is magical. But, like, I get it. Like, it's hard. Like, I had ulcers so bad once when I was in this emotionally abusive relationship that I started throwing up blood clots and had to be rushed to the emergency room and shit, and I didn't even know what was going on. They were all like, oh, you have ulcers. Like, they just said it calmly because, I'm black, and they think, oh, black women don't feel pain. Bitch, I'm sitting here throwing up blood clots and big old chunky balls of blood coming up out and then you want to stick a tube into my stomach. I never had a tube in my, what's going on? Like, that's how bad it gets. Like, so I get it. And then it's like, you want the quick release, and so you end up going back to the toxic thing because at least it'll help you feel better for 5 minutes versus having to actually work on this shit. And when you start working on it, you're not going to feel better for a long time. Like, it's nice to talk about it in therapy, but it's like, it's not the same as going back to that toxic nigga or doing that drug. That drug will have you euphoric and shit in 3, 2, 1, nigga. And so it's hard, and so I can't necessarily be mad at people that ain't there yet, but don't hurt people. Don't put that shit on other people. With that, you cross the line. There is a line to be crossed when you are unhealed, and when you hurt other people, that's when you cross the line. No, you can't just start a whole train of trauma in somebody else because you couldn't control your motherfucking self. Something wrong with you. And so anyway, she's having this conniption fit, and the next thing you know, she fucked being banged out from the back by David Banner, just banging the Mario coins out of her and shit. And she she's just messy with it, just sloppy with it, like, oh, and then she asking him for money like she a prostitute or some shit. And I'm just like, I don't think she's actually a prostitute. I just think she had a sex addiction and stuff. Now, when it comes to like addictions, like, it's physical too, because it's dopamine. It's a dopamine rush. So in my last video, I talked about how, like, when you're in like an abusive relationship and you get that euphoric feeling when they're love bombing you, that's dopamine. That's why you feel like you belong together, and like, oh my gosh, we belong together. He's my soulmate. I know it is. She's my soulmate, and da 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 da. No, you're just high. And dopamine is the happy hormone that runs whenever we do anything that makes us feel good. And so you're just high. And I had to learn that, and I had to take that in, because that's how you start to accept peace and contentment in your life. Peace and contentment. You're not going to feel euphoric all the time, because that means your engine's always running, whether it's always running in a negative way or in a positive way. Your engine should not always be running. It's like if you left your car on for a week. I don't know much about cars, but I'm sure if you left it on for a week, something bad would happen to it. Just left it parked and on for a whole week. At some point, it's going to die or explode or some shit. So it doesn't matter what direction it is. You ain't supposed to have your engines running all the time. And so, like, her dopamine is orgasms. And she just can't get enough of them. And so she fucking David Banner right after her nigga leave. And then we go over to Lazarus. This is Samuel L. Jackson's character. And he's getting dumped by his wife because she wants to be with his brother. Because he dated a younger woman whose dad told him not to date. And also, she got an abortion because she didn't want to have kids. And that's fucked him up ever since. And she didn't even say nothing to this nigga. And okay, I get it, because I don't like to lump men into like an object. They have the same emotions as we do. So just as somebody that wanted to have a kid and had a miscarriage, I believe a man can like lose a child in some way from the person that he got pregnant, can lose that child and feel just as bad as somebody that had a miscarriage and wanted a child. But the thing is that she didn't want no kids. She didn't want no motherfucking kids, nigga. Like she told you. She told him she wasn't ready to have kids. So when she went away to visit her aunt and got the abortion and came back and her breast wasn't swelled and the glow was gone and you just felt the type of way, you should have left. Like you should. I mean, like, did she tell you she didn't want to have kids off top? Like when you was like when you was like first dating her? Like that's a deal breaker for me. I unmatched a nigga because I didn't see on his profile that he didn't want to have kids. And then when we was messaging each other, I went back to look at his profile and I was like, oh, he doesn't want to have kids. And then I told him, oh, you don't want to have kids. I think we should stop. And he was just like, well, yeah, but no, there's no. And then I unmatched him because that's a deal breaker. I want to have kids. I would have kids. Like, so why would I be talking to a nigga that don't? That's an important life decision. You have already made that important life decision in an opposite direction of me. Why the fuck would I want to keep talking to you about important life decisions? Or why the fuck would I want to keep talking to you when our important life decisions don't match? Like, that's one of them foundational decisions and shit in a relationship. You got me fucked up, nigga. I want to have kids. I want to get married first, and I want to have kids. So why would you be with somebody who has clearly expressed, I believe multiple times, that she doesn't want to have kids? And I'm sorry you had to go through that trauma of experiencing her getting an abortion. But if she don't want to, why are you with a bitch that don't want to have kids when you wanted to have a bushel of babies and shit, nigga? Like, so I feel bad just for the fact that his emotions are valid. He felt pain and he was traumatized. But at the end of the day, you need to listen to people when they tell you who they are. Like, she told you who she was. You wasn't going to change this bitch mind and everything like that. And so we're living in this down south patriarchal shit. But let me shut the fuck up, because it ain't even that. Because niggas is out here slipping condoms off and making bitches pregnant and shit. No, like, it don't even matter. Like, you should listen to what she said. You wasn't going to talk her into doing some shit with her body she didn't want to do. So I'm sorry that you were sad, and I'm sorry that you were traumatized, and, you know, next time, you know, if a bitch says she don't want to have kids, you should listen to her. But and the fact that she cheated on him with his brother too, on top of everything, then she gonna tell him in the diner, and then she gonna say out loud, "I don't love you anymore, and I just feel myself getting old in that house." And but well, you married an old Southern man that lives in a little shanty shack off in the cut with a garden. Did he not live in the little shanty shack when you met him? Did he not live off in the cut with his little tractor and his little garden and his little crops that he was selling in the town center and shit like that? Why you get with a nigga? So they both wrong. Why you get with a nigga who showed you who he was from jump? He ain't had no money like that. You knew he wasn't rich. This nigga made money by selling his little crops in the downtown area. Why would you? Okay. No, because it pissed me off. No, that's what healing does. Healing makes you realize what you're going to accept and what you're not going to accept. And them big life decisions and shit, like, I'm not living in the middle of the fucking woods in some shanty shack. And does it have running water? I think it did, but still, like, I'm not, like, it needs to be pretty, and, like, I need to still be able to travel the world and see stuff, so we need to still have money to do that. Like, I would like to live in a cottage in the woods with a rose garden and shit like that, but I want to live on an island and shit. Like, I want to still have money to go places and do shit. Like, I don't want to just stay there the whole fucking, okay. These are major life decisions. That's what I'm saying. These are major life decisions. And so, like, that's what that little whole scene told me. Like, y'all out here making these major life decisions and are just leading with what you want and not considering that the other person is a human being that doesn't want the same thing you want, and then get mad when they show you that they don't want the same thing you want. So yeah, she got an abortion. On the other side, Christina Ricci, she going to the little marketplace. She walking around in town in her little hoochie shorts and shit. And she trying to go to the little marketplace. Come and lo and behold, her mama work at the marketplace, and they got bad blood between them. It seemed like her mom was probably emotionally abusive, probably physically abusive, the way she grabbed her up in that store in that one scene. And, like, she let that nigga touch on her, and she don't want to admit that she knew that nigga was touching on her. So Christina Ricci don't even know how to approach the bitch. The bitch don't even like her because she thinks she a whole slut, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, but this is your creation. If you have been supportive of your child and giving her love and cut that nigga's dick off. What? Like... No, she wouldn't be the way she was, but we don't understand this, and she ain't got empathy enough to just care for her child, even if she don't understand why her child doing what she doing. See, that's why it's no excuse to not have information. Either you're gonna have empathy and care about people regardless of the mistakes that they make and the shit that happen in their life, and you're gonna protect people because you love them and shit like that, or you're not. It don't matter how much education you got or some shit like that. It's just about being a decent human fucking being, bitch. So it's like some areas you can be like, oh, they live in small towns, so they don't have a lot of information to call the anxiety, and the sex addiction. But it's like, if you're a decent fucking person, like, I mean, Lazarus is a decent person, but you know, he didn't have to put that chain around that bitch. They figured it out though. He became her little stepdaddy situation. Okay, leave me fuck alone. So anyways, Lazarus is at a bar. And he's getting drunk, and his brother shows up. I'm just like, here we go. And it's like, I was just like, why are you even talking to this nigga? You knew what you did was fucked up. Like, just take the L and go. You got the bitch. He's here by himself and da-da-da-da. Like, you got the bitch, you want to go. But this nigga gonna come and be like, I told her we wouldn't, because they was gonna leave town and shit on Saturday or some shit. He was like, I told her we weren't gonna leave town until I made it right with you, and da I put my foot down and da. And this nigga just looking at him like, what the fuck is you talking about? That's my wife, nigga. And it was set this nigga off was that this nigga said, I love you. You love your brother, but you stole his wife. No telling how long they have been fucking beforehand. Who knows? But you stole his fucking wife. Anyways, Samuel L. Jackson, the actor, rose up and he slammed this nigga down on the pool table and smashed his motherfucking bottle, and he said, and Cain slew Abel. And God marked him, and you want me to mark you? And I said, yes. God, this nigga is an actor. This is black acting. This isn't gonna be like the white Shakespearean, but it still has that feel to it. This is like cultural, like you dig deep and you pull some cultural shit about you and you turn it into a Shakespearean moment and shit, nigga. This is what this is. This nigga's an actor. Whether he's a hood nigga, whether he's a drug addict, whether he's snakes on a fucking plane, bitch. This nigga can act, and I wish he would come back. Come back to us, Samuel L. Samuel. I can't say it separate. You don't leave me the fuck alone, bitch. Come back to us and act. I hate these motherfucking Marvel movies and shit. No, it's the same shit over and over and over again. Like, it's fun to watch. Like, it's a fun watch. I'm not saying like Marvel movies aren't fun. But it's the same plot and story. The superheroes saving stuff. They reminding us how fucked up the world is and what they represent, the blah blah blah, and they blowing up buildings, and you just gotta wonder like how these cities pay to fix these buildings. Like, the superheroes don't pay for this. Like, Spider-Man ain't got no motherfucking money. He's a teenager. Like, how is he? Did Tony Stark give him like, and then how is Tony Stark coming back as Doom? I'm just like, I'm tired. Like, Robert Downey Jr. was playing characters like Charlie Chaplin in the 90s and shit like that, and I just, where is that? What happened to that? Even the little cute like rom-coms and shit he used to do are like, I'm still not gonna forgive him for Tropic Thunder. I don't know why niggas is making that shit okay, like it's not blackface and shit. Like, he doesn't have to own up to shit. Like, he doesn't have to own up to blackface. Like, y'all just out here like, he can get away with it. It was funny. He was a black dude playing, or some shit he was playing. I don't fucking care what the fuck he was talking about. Like, that was blackface. I don't understand why the niggas is gaslighting folks into believing that it wasn't. That's some confusing ass shit right there. But like, just why are you back in this? Like, I want to see some shit. Like, there's this movie that I still have the DVD, and I used to watch it all the time in undergrad. It's called Mirror Mask, and it's like one of my top 10 favorite movies. And like, it's this little girl, it's like an isekai, and this girl goes into this other world, but the artistry and like, it's just amazing. It's just like, the artistry of that fucking movie is amazing, and it gives Stephen King that one book where that little boy went into the other world and shit. Like, she did have to save her mom just like that one little boy did, but like they never made like a movie off that book. So like, for me, this was that movie. For that Stephen King book where the little boy went into the other world and was trying to save his mom and shit like that because she was dying of cancer, and it was all crazy and shit up in that bitch. This was the movie that represented that for me. I don't care because they never made a movie. And so it's just like shit like that. Like now they turning everything to AI and shit. It's exhausting. I just want to see some different shit. Like this Tyler Perry shit where it's just movie after movie. Black women are being degraded. It's like you can watch it every once in a while. Like I love sitting and watching a good Lifetime movie. Like, you know, bad production and everything. It's dramatic. You know, it's fun. But it's like I have to be in a mood to sit and binge watch Lifetime. Like, I don't want to have to do that when I'm not in the mood for that. Sometimes I'm in the mood for fantasy and I want to see black people in fantasy. Or I'm in the mood for horror and I want to see black people in horror or science fiction. And it's like, I mean, there's stuff out there like Star Trek and shit like that and stuff. But it's just like the actors that you really enjoy, and you just have to see them sucked up into and doing the same shit over and over and over again. It's fucking boring. It's just like, maybe it's because he's older and shit, and this is just like his retirement thing that he does because he can make a little extra cash or some shit. I don't fucking know. So anyways, he rolls up on that nigga like he was in Pulp Fiction and was saying scriptures again and shit. And I was just like, yes, nigga. And sometimes you can repeat the same shit over and over again. It's about honing your craft. If that is your niche, hone that bitch. You don't gotta know how to do 5 different things. Hone the fucking niche you got and make it amazing and be the best at that niche. So I don't even care if it reminds me of Pulp Fiction and he just repeating himself. No, that's his shit. Like, some people have niches. Some people can be like, I don't know, Leonardo DiCaprio and just be playing. I didn't expect that nigga to come out with Shutter Island. The nigga from Romeo and Juliet and then Shutter Island. What? How? And then that other shit where he was going in people's minds and then they dreams and shit over Inception. Like them ain't the same characters. Them ain't the same people, nigga. Like when he played that famous nigga that was pissing in bottles around his room and shit like that, and you was just like, this is not. So some people are good at just switching it up, and some people have niches, and there's nothing fucking wrong with that. And Samuel Jackson has a niche, and he is perfect at it. And it's like the Disney don't allow him to express his niche to the fullest extent, like at all, and it's just exhausting. That's all I'm saying. But anyway. Anyways, his brother leaves the bar and he just ends up cutting his own hand. So I was just like, okay, girl. And then Christina Ricci at some white hillbilly party in somebody's backyard and shit. It's the woods and the backyard at the same time because they're in the country. So it's some big open space behind somebody's fucking house. And I was just like looking and I saw like a couple black people in the crowd and I was just like, I hope they survive the night. No, you can't be partying with drunk, high white people like that. Like, I just wouldn't party with only mostly white people, period. But like, especially not inebriated white people, because you remember what happened to that woman that was at that sleepover with them white bitches and then ended up dead at the bottom of that balcony the next day and nobody know what happened. Nobody ever got arrested and never got investigated. Nothing ever was, we don't know. And that has always just stuck with me when I have walked into a room and it's been mostly white people. Just be on guard. Just be on guard. So I hope those black people in the middle of the South where these niggas flip-flop between calling you a nigga and calling you their friend, based off of their mood. So you don't know if you're going to randomly get stabbed in the face for sticking a pinky toe outside of the box that they put you in their head. Or if they're just going to be chill and be like regular and shit. You don't know. It's a surprise. Like this nigga Justin Timberlake almost shot this nigga in the back of the head and shit. Like, but was able to like get it together and be his friend at the end. I don't know. It's giving a little magical. The whole movie's giving magical Negro, but they give the black people some background. Like John Singleton produced it. I didn't even know that. So it's only partially magical Negro. And so she's at this party, and Ronnie's friend is there. He's the nigga from True Blood. The one in the first few seasons where he was like a serial killer and shit, and he was speaking Creole and shit. That was the first time, and I know black people speak Creole. It came from black people, all the shit. But that was the first time I ever heard somebody. No, Bandit from X-Men, but like a real life person speaking Creole. That was the first time I ever heard something, and I was just like, what is he speaking? It's so magical. Guys, it's so pretty. I loved it. It was so pretty. I don't know if he put it on, that he's from Louisiana and that's his, but it was magical. But then it turned out to be a serial killer, and in this one he's like a rapist slash assaulter. And so, you know, when people play parts over and over again that are similar, I just be wondering, like, some of that is really you, like, because you got to put a piece of yourself in your art to make it unique and shit. So like, that Creole was pretty though. But anyways, this nigga's there, and so Christina Ricci feels the type of way, and so she walk over to him and she's like, I can party with my friends. This nigga like, I'm not spying on you for riding your shit. I know you a like, that's summarized. I know you a hoe. And she got mad and walked off, and then took like 4 anonymous pills. I don't know what the fuck she took. It didn't kill her, but like, you had these random niggas just sticking in, and then she has this cough in the beginning of the movie for the first like 20-30 minutes of the movie. And I really thought, because you know how in movies when bitches be coughing, like they have HIV and shit, like especially in the 90s and early 2000s movies and shit. And so I really thought she had HIV. I was just like, why does she keep coughing and hacking and shit? I mean, it appeared to turn out to be a cold. So I don't know, but like, I don't know, nigga. But she just messy with it. She got random niggas fucking you on the football on the yard with your titties out and football pads on your shoulders and shit. You just doing shit. These niggas coming and rutting on her like she a fucking animal. Like, no, it's okay to be promiscuous and open, but it's like, the healthy way to do it is to have rules and regulations for your body so that you don't get diseases and shit. This is a party of what looked to be at least 50 plus people, and you don't know all these people like that, and you just letting some random nigga just come and rat all up on you, and you don't know what the fuck he got. I don't know if they even use protection. Probably not. And like, it looked like he nutted in her. I don't know. Maybe she's on birth control at the very least, because she wasn't pregnant. But I just, I didn't like it. She needed a healing. But anyways, here come this nigga, Creole motherfucker, and he's like, cause she up there high as shit, can't recognize what's going on around her, and he so basically he said he's gonna take her home and shit. This nigga parks in the middle of the fucking road somewhere. Oh, the dark roads of the country, girl. That shit is scary as fuck. Like, no, anything could happen when you're in the South on some dark dirt road and shit. I feel like I have like generational trauma. Because the thought of a dark country road by myself, or even with other black people, is horrifyingly scary. Like, somewhere deep in my soul, there's this fear. Like, no, because we was running through shit like that from slavery on. Like, this wasn't just like, oh, the civil rights movement when they are even after Jim Crow. This ain't even Jim Crow where like, oh, like if you was driving your car along the road and the police come and get you, you could die and get strung up from a tree or some shit, or you just walking home, you could die and shit. No, this is like from slavery, like the darkness of the southern woods. And getting killed and raped and shit in that motherfucker. Oh, the horror. I hate it. I hate it so much. He took her to some dark shit off in the cut and like was trying to have sex with her, and then she just started laughing at him and shit because he was talking shit about Tayron, David Banner's character and shit, and he was like calling him a nigger and then she started laughing at him when he pulled his pants down, and of course Sensitive just started wailing on her and shit. I was just like, and then this nigga gonna stop and start screaming at her, get up, nigga. Christina Ricci is short as fuck. She even smaller than Justin Timberlake in this bitch. And this is Justin Timberlake in the early 2000s, like right when he cut his hair and he was like skinny and shit and little. Like, no, nigga, like, she like 5 foot nothing and shit. Like, your hand, your fist is like half the size of her face. Her head, maybe even. You hit her like 5 times in the face. Why would you not know that she was knocked the fuck out, or at least or either dead, unconscious, knocked the fuck out, whatever the words are. Like, why would he was just hoping. He was just hoping upon hope that she would wake the fuck. He was like wishing to the air. So he dumps her ass out on the road, like in front of Lazarus' house, unbeknownst to him. And so in the morning, Lazarus see her on the road, and he go up to her, and he's like, "Ma'am, Miss, Mrs. Massive." I hate it. I was like, at first, I was like, what if this was like a black woman? But then it's like he chained her up, and I just feel like some things black women don't need to be in. Like Euphoria, like, that bitch was crazy. Why what would a black woman, how would that be helpful? Like, Zendaya is enough. She like biracial and shit, nigga. Like, that's enough. I don't want to see a one of me's up in there. I just don't. I'm not excited about it. Like, we got enough Tyler Perry movies. Looking foolish. This nigga gonna say the uppity niggas and shit. No, nigga. Times are changing. People's psychology is evolving. People have health care and shit, and they're getting therapy. And they're working through all of this generational fucking trauma that we've been, like, fed upon since slavery and shit. And we're just finding ourselves. And a good portion of us is no longer like what is being portrayed in the movies. And also, a good portion of us wants to see a possibility of people just being happy and falling in love and shit like that look like us. And with your style. Like, just I could see he could make a really good rom-com. Like, he could. Take out all that trauma and degradation and all that bullshit. He could make a really sweet, happy, beautiful rom-com with 2 dark-skinned people. And yet he refuses to. Like he could make, I could see it. But no, it's always like we out here like getting drowned and raped and like, why did I get married to when that nigga was spitting on Janet Jackson? Why we gotta go out like that? Why we gotta look like that? Like, that's all I'm saying. Uppity niggas and shit. Like, what are you talking about? Nigga, I just went to therapy and I love myself now, and I want to see other black women loving themselves and seeing some black men loving on them and shit, and that be the whole fucking movie. Maybe some hijinks ensue, like, in the rom-coms and shit, but like, they get back together at the end and everything's fine. Not like niggas is cheating and doing bullshit and cussing the bitch out, and then the nigga's poor and shit. So like, she got money but he's poor and shit. I don't care. I don't like it. Black women need to be taken care of all the way around, full circle, financially, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. They do, because that's what we do. No, nigga, that's what we do. So if we do that, why not ask for it in return? What is the problem with these? Whatever. So anyway, he found her on the road, and he's just like, oh my gosh, and brings her in the house and puts her up on the couch, and she started coughing blood in his fucking face. Just wait. Oh my gosh, I hated it so much. Anyway. anyways, he runs to the pharmacy. He macking up the pharmacist a little bit. That's a woman more his speed, more his age. She's friendly, more traditional, wifely type and shit like that. Godly. She be singing at church and shit. That's his type. Maybe she could even have kids. You never know. Older women be having kids and shit. It could happen. He want a bushel of kids. I think he's like projecting on the Christina Ricci's character too, because he wants kids. And so, like, even though like she was later on trying to seduce him in the movie, and he looked, and because the flesh is gonna flesh, I guess, but it's like a nigga that's not attractive. But I can't imagine if it was like a kid, like it was a kid or a teenager. But like, if the nigga was like 25 or some shit and he was flexing a little bit, I mean, I would look. And that would just be about my business, because it's like he looked like a child in the face. So it would just be like the flesh does something and then you just like ignore it. Like, oh, okay. And you ignore it and you go about your day. Like, so the initial, and then you just ignore it and go about your fucking day. And so I could see him doing that. And then he ignored it and went about his fucking he just went and did his own shit. Like, when he was picking her up though, there was some under titty grabs and I was just looking like, no, because you gotta clock in movies the shit that's actively happening in real life. Because they had to actively film that scene and touch each other and shit. So he was actively pinky under titty grab, and I was just like, so see, now I'm rethinking it. I'm just like, see, never mind, put all that shit I was just talking about, nigga. He brings her in the house, he goes max up the pharmacist a little bit, gets some free medicine, some cough syrup for her, and he goes back to the house, and then she has this whole conniption fit. She kissed him on the mouth, and he freaked the fuck out and ran off, and then she started having this like she started saying some random shit, and talking about, get off me, getting a hump in the air, and he thought she was possessed and shit. She just had a fit. Like, she was hallucinating because she had like a fever dream or some shit. And no, it was all like flashbacks to the shit that happened to her and shit. So she was like fighting the dude that like threw her out the truck and shit. And she was having flashbacks to the nigga that molested her and shit. And so like, he just looking at her though. He don't know what the fuck's going on. They don't know mental health shit. And or maybe they do, because he suggested like in the beginning when his wife was like trying to leave him, like he was talking to the pastor and he asked the pastor if like he could talk to the counselor at the church, and maybe, or no, he told his wife like, maybe we could talk to the counselors at the church and work through it, and we got to fix our relationship and blah blah blah. And that's when she was like, I don't love you, Nick. So maybe they do. Like, I'm not gonna like. It's not even like about like intellectuality or nothing. It's just about access to information. But it's like, if you're watching the news and shit, you should occasionally, like, it wasn't all the time, especially in the early 2000s, that you saw some shit about therapy. But you would see some shit like in the movies and shit like that. So they're not that sequestered. You know what a counselor is and shit. Maybe it's just not all like the mental health jargons and shit like that, and like the mechanisms of trauma that you can find on TikTok right now. Like, you just open your phone and look that shit up. Narcissism and emotional abuse and shit. Like, you just open it and look for it. Just type it in your phone and shit. Like, so it's not as readily, but it's kind of sort of circling around and shit. So anyways, he goes, gets her the cough syrup. She having a conniption spit on the floor, and so he's like, oh my, and he gets his handy dandy Bible, and oh my gosh, he gets his Bible and starts reading the scripture, and then like, I guess he gets her back on the couch, and like, he starts praying to God and just like, let me, help me, Lord. And at some point, like, it's nighttime and she like runs out of the house because she's having another fever dream or some shit. And then that's when he decides that he's going to chain her up because because the demons are controlling. We're superstitious people too. sickness. They kept calling it a sickness instead. They knew something. Everyone knew something was wrong because the way she was on dick was just like, it was too much. It was too much. She was like a dog rutting and shit. Like, it was just like, she couldn't stop. Like, it was too much. And so they knew it was too much and something was wrong. But like, they still just lumped her in with the hoes and sluts and shit. Like, and just like took advantage of her and made her feel bad about herself and shit. And the whole town just looked at her like she was crazy. So like, you know, it stopped her from rutting on niggas. He shouldn't have. No, because that could have turned into like some abusive shit she does later to her kids or some shit because she normalized that shit. And like now the chain has become like her touchstone because when she was having her conniption fit and anxiety and shit and her arousal panic attack or whatever, like she like wrapped the chain all around her body and shit, and then like she calmed down. She used it for like grounding or some shit. And I mean, I get it. Like, I saw Inside Out too, and at the end when she was having a panic attack and shit like that, and how she used the bench and started touching the bench and smelling the air and hearing the sounds to like reground her in the present and shit. So I get it. But he still had to tie her up with that motherfucking chain, nigga. Like, I mean, he didn't leave it on for that long. I'm trying, because it turned out good in the end. Like, not good, but like, she had a new way to cope, whereas she didn't have it before, and it wasn't like totally like toxic and harmful to her. So that's why I'm just like, it wasn't all the way back. You know, shades of gray, but like, you can't do this shit in real life. No, it's like when you're reading a dark romance, you know, those dark romance novels where they have like sociopaths fall in love with bitches and then they become their one and only in the air that they breathe, but they still allow them freedom to be themselves and shit like that. Like, no, that is a mental health illness that if you are not actively working on yourself on a consistent basis, you can easily fall into some shit where you just like, everything's an object and I'm gonna put you in my little basement city. So, you know, when you read the books, you gotta, like, have an air of realism. Like, niggas don't just stop being, they don't have a limit like that when it comes to bringing people into their lives. And, like, they don't tend to have a limit like that. I'm not gonna say all, because, you know, you never know. There's people out there that be trying to, like, protect other people by working on themselves and shit, or just staying away from people. Depending on how severe the issue is when it comes to narcissism and sociopathy or antisocial disorder. But like, you can't read them books and be like, oh, this is real, I want this. No, them niggas in real life will lock you in their basement city, most likely, statistically speaking. Most likely. And you will never be free again. You'll never see the world again. They think your life is their life and they can just take it whenever the fuck. They just take all your hobbies and things that you enjoy because they're just so jealous and so insecure. Like, you can't read shit like that and be like, oh no, I'm gonna find a nigga that's obsessed with me, but in like a healthy way. Like, this. You can't be obsessed in a healthy way. Like, nigga, like, no, because when you're obsessed, you always have to sacrifice something. But when you like various things, and some things are above other things, then, like, you don't have to sacrifice as much. Like, okay, so if I'm obsessed with Bitcoin, and you can't pull me away from it, I don't care about nothing else but Bitcoin. Yeah, I made a lot of money, but then you got to take away deposits from, like, your social life, from, like, your creativity life, from, like, traveling. Like, you would just always be doing Bitcoin every single day. Like, that's what obsession looks like. Every single day, 24/7. That's like an addiction. And so you would be pulling away from all the other shit. So you have to like balance all the other shit so you can stay sane and shit and not become so obsessed with something that you lose some important shit. So, you don't want nobody that's obsessed with you and shit. Cause you're not gonna be free in the world, right? So just how that shit doesn't work in real life, you have to remember this is a movie. And this shit didn't actually, you can't do this to people. You cannot chain niggas. I don't care how deep the shit is. You cannot chain motherfuckers and keep them as prisoners. Okay? So, now that we've established that rapport, let's move on. So he got her change of shit, and then she finally wake up and she's like screaming, and then she ran out the house and then the chain yanked her fucking back, and I had to remind myself that that's probably like styrofoam or plastic or some shit like that, because she wasn't bruised at all from this chain, and she was out here with her stomach out and shit, and I was just like, no, that would start to like scratch your shit up and stuff, so you can't be walking around with no metal shit around your fucking waist, nigga. What you talking about? You would get like a burn, a rash or some shit. It would be horrible. It would be the devil. So, right, like I had to remind myself of that. And then he like pulls her back inside. He's like, I'm gonna hurt on you or some shit. I forgot what he said, nigga, but like he was looking like a psycho. Oh shit! He yanked her ass back in that motherfucking house so quick, and then his ass gonna leave her there like she wasn't gonna attempt to escape or shit. And I was just like, "What's going on?" But she didn't attempt to escape because now she has Stockholm syndrome. You can't do this shit in real life, like for real, not for real. Like you're not gonna watch this and be like, "I saw this therapist." On YouTube, and she was saying how like Stockholm syndrome can be healthy sometimes. I did not say that, bitch. You was a motherfucking lie. No, I didn't. This is a movie. And this shit worked out for her because they orchestrated that movie to go this way. But in real life, you can't do this to people. Like, if you in like a consensual, like, kink community situation, like, this is why some people go into kink is so that they can relive their traumas, but like have control of it or some shit like that. And like it soothes the whatever inside of them that makes them feel upset or overwhelmed sometimes, and it makes them feel good. And like it doesn't hurt nobody, it doesn't hurt them, and the ones that are healthy with it, make sure they're safe and use protection and shit like that. And, they can chain each other up and do shit like that. Because they both agree to it and they both are not codependent on each other or in some weird shit and they have safe words and it's magical for them and they're not, like, maiming each other to where they're disabled and shit. Because that's not okay. But, like, this shit right here, like, it's non-consensual. Like, you can't do that because that's not consent. Like, you can't take away someone's freedom. So I just wanted to repeat that because you're not gonna come with my motherfucking shit talking about I said it. She said it was fine because she was healthy. Like, no, I didn't. It just works in this situation because it turned into one of them consensual, non-consensual things, but it wasn't like sexual. You have consensual, non-consensual, but it not be sexual. See, this is an example of it. Like, it turned into one of them situations in the movie because they orchestrated it that way. So, like, this nigga leaves and goes to the store, and this is where shit turns into some darkness, and I just... this kid, right? And he's between the age of 12 and 14. That's how he look in the face. And, like, he's supposed to get some sweet peas from Lazarus. And he had said earlier in the movie he was going to come over and get some sweet peas, right? Because his mama wanted some sweet peas. It's like he come over. I don't know why why he kept knocking, but you know, kids, they be nosy and shit. They be want to know stuff, so I don't even, whatever. He just kept knocking, trying to see if he was there, but like Lazarus had went to the store to buy her some clothes and then to mac up the pharmacist some more and shit. And she was holding back. She was using the chain to keep her inside and doing all this stuff and breathing hard and trying to be quiet. Then she cuddled up against the radiator the chain was tied to. And this little nigga opened his door, and like it's the South, so they be leaving their doors unlocked. People be walking to each other's houses and shit. I wish the fuck. No, you don't, because privacy is important, is all I'm saying. Like, so this is like normal for this child to do. And so, but this bitch jumps on this baby with her titties out and just grabs his face, and just kissing all on this child. And then closed the door, and she molested him. They was fucking, because when Lazarus came back, he was like, was that your first time? And I'm just like, why would that be the response to this child being molested? He was in the barn crying and shit, nigga, like he knew he was. And then it's like, I reviewed Eve's Bayou, right? And then it's like, that little kiss he had with the children. The optics is off, is all. The optics is off, because I was just like, why is this in another movie? Like, this shit is okay. I mean, like, I don't know. It could be the production or the writers or some shit. It could be. And so, I'm trying, y'all. You guys be saying how I feel. Like, it's hard to just mask and pretend. I don't know how niggas be doing it. This bullshit. Because I'm not posting this. I don't give a fuck. It's the optics is off. That's all. He's just like, oh, this is your first time. My first time was with my second cousin. And yeah, the cultures of the South, the deep South, but no, nigga, like, he's like 12 to 14 or some shit. Like, he's like a fucking baby, and she just jumped on him. And then on top of that, this goes back to what I was saying earlier about clocking real shit in movies. No, because they had to actively film that. Did they replace this child with a stunt double when she jumped on him with her titties out and like gobbled up his fucking face? Like, or did this like 12 to 14-year-old child have to experience that? Was there a parent on set? Like, his voice hadn't even dropped yet. Like, he was probably closer to 12, 13. Like, I just, and it just makes you wonder, like, I don't know cause She Smooth was like 30 almost, probably, or close to 30 in that movie. And you tell me, nigga, like, I just, respectfully. And then Lazarus comes home, like, he pulls him in the bar, congratulates him for being molested, and oh my gosh. And so, like, that happens. And then, like, they have, like, the pastor came over, and, like, he had to show him the tied up girl, and the pastor was, like, talking to her about God, and, like, how heaven is here in the present. Like, he was talking about mindfulness and shit, nigga, like, with Jesus or some shit. Like, I have to worry about the here and now and the present and shit. So, the pastor taught her mindfulness, y'all, with Jesus. He did though. He taught her mindfulness with Jesus. He said, I have to worry about heaven right now in the present. I can't be just doing what I want and hoping in the end I'm gonna go to heaven. I gotta make heaven here and shit. That's mindfulness. He did. So he knew what he was doing. Maybe he went to school for therapy. Maybe he got some kind of counseling degree and shit. He ain't just a pastor and shit. Maybe he knew. He snuck that shit in there. I didn't realize it. See, you see that? She got some therapy. She got a little taste of it. You see that, y'all? why the South is so religious, because you throwing some real shit in with some made up shit that these niggas took and twisted on their own self and shit. And so the real shit be real though. Like, and so that's why niggas be glued to that shit so fiercely that they take in the fake shit too as the real shit, and you can't tell no different, because it make them feel so good when they down and shit that they don't want to think critically to make sure that they ain't being fucked up to other people and taking in the fake shit too. Like, you know what? This one, I have a brain, y'all. Like, anyway. Anyways, he's teaching her mindfulness and through Jesus Christ. And like, they decide to have dinner and she's sitting up there with the light shining on her like she Jesus or something. See, I just, Mrs. Master, like, I was just like, but then I wouldn't have wanted that to be a little black. I'm tired. I mean, I'm not saying, I don't think it should happen. That type of shit shouldn't happen to anybody. Like, cause it fucks you up. But like, I just didn't have the energy to be seeing myself this week in some shit where some horrible shit is happening. Like, cause I relate to characters and shit, and it's just when you see yourself in some shit and some horrible shit is happening, and you ain't in that headspace, like, I don't feel like it. Like, I don't fucking feel like it. And so like, he decides to free her that night. I guess she was tied up maybe like a day and a half. Don't tie niggas up, y'all. Like, you're not supposed to do that. That is unhealthy. Like, oh my gosh. Like, it has to be consensual. Like, people have to agree to shit. There has to be safe words. People have to feel in control of themselves and their bodies and shit. So, don't tie niggas up. But anyways, so they have dinner, right? And then the next day, like, he take her into town so she can get some toiletries from the store. I guess now he's her official dad or some shit. Because I thought he was going to let her go free back home. I guess she didn't want to go home. And she was going to come back to the farm with him. So now, like, he's her dad or some shit. Like, I don't know. It was... That's so good for them. Like, no, he's on her for like 3 days. Like, you don't know this little white bitch. No, I've heard of stories like this. And there's outliers where people can connect and become like great and wonderful, just like how they orchestrated it in this movie when they decided to write it this way. But statistically speaking, in real life, like, this child wouldn't have healed this fast and some shit would have went down. No, that little mindfulness situation is not going to be like all encompassing healing. You saw how she was acting. Her hands all fucked up and shit. She was just, I was just like, oh shit. Like, no, nigga, like, she needs a lot of thorough months, maybe years of therapy to work through the shit that happened to her and the shit that kept on happening to her and the random ass fucking penises that were all up in her and shit that she probably feels emotionally and shit. And so, nah, that shit ain't real, nigga. I guess we want it to be, though. We want it to, like, imprint on it as something that could potentially happen and shit. And that's, I wish a nigga would chain me to a motherfucking wall. I'm a dog. Oh, shit, I would go to jail. I'd wrap that shit around his neck so fast. He would go down. We would just both go down. You're not about to take my motherfucking freedom, bitch. I'm gonna be free. Give us free, bitch. Oh, shit. Oh. my freedom. I don't care what the fuck you talking about. You over here talking that bullshit. I don't know what the fuck to tell you, nigga. Like, you not taking my motherfucking freedom. There's things I want to do in life and places I want to go. And these niggas don't be giving a shit. They just be like, this is my object. This is my toy. And I can do whatever the fuck I want with it. And they don't give a fuck that you want to do shit, too. Like, you want to go places and do stuff. And you have people that care about you and shit. They don't give a shit. And, like, that is horrible. I wish a nigga would chain me to a wall like a motherfucking dog, nigga. I'd dog walk that No, because when the fight, flight, or freeze kicks in, like, I get this adrenaline rush, and I don't feel pain. And so shit just be happening. I just be going for it. I just be like, well, fuck it. Like, I just don't want to be involved in violence. And so, Lord, keep them motherfuckers away from no, keep them niggas away from me. In the name of Jesus. Praise God. Yes, Lord. Whew, shit. You got me fucked up, nigga. Like, there's so many places I want to see in the world and do and just experience and take pictures and the audacity of these niggas. So no, you shouldn't have chained her to no motherfucking wall. It worked out just because, like, I don't know, she used to niggas being violent and being fucked up and shit, so like she attached herself to the violence of it all because he turned out to not like go further than that and like was decent kind of sort of after, I guess. Like, that's what it was. And so anyways, she at the grocery store, right, and her mama there, and her mama's all like, and then she get in her mama face, and her mama's got an attitude because she don't like her and shit, and then she's all like, just admit that you knew he was touching me, and da-da-da-da-da, and her mom's all fucked up and mad, and then like choked her up and shit in the store, and then she started beating her mom with a fucking broom, and she was beating her mom with a motherfucking broom, nigga. She got a and they had to come and get her and shit. And then he was outside backing the pharmacist up. And then he had to go in there and get her. He had to carry her out like she was a fucking baby and shit. And I was just like, you know, this bitch for maybe a few days. I mean, it probably happens like that. It probably does. It probably does. It does. But then, like, the nigga chained her to a wall and shit, too. Like, I don't know. It's weird. So he takes her back home, and they both can't sleep, so they go to the juke joint and shit. And I liked it. I would party at a juke joint. That looks fun. That looks exciting. You know, it looked like that painting from Good Times and shit. They was just getting it and shit. And then he started singing and shit, and it's like, this nigga got a, but he was in that movie with Bernie Mac and shit, Soul Man and shit. Wasn't he singing in that too? This nigga can sing a little bit. And so she up in there getting all sweaty, dancing on everybody and shit. And then, like, here come Ronnie. So Ronnie had been sent back because his anxiety disorder. This is the first time he learned the word anxiety, or at least that he had it. And so basically they had been keeping records of how often he threw up and shit, and how he froze and had panic attacks when he was shooting shit. And basically they kicked his ass out because he kept freezing up and throwing up and stopping. And every time, like, he could, when they practiced shooting, he could do it. But when he was like asked, like, I don't know, shoot some other shit, animals, just, I don't know, like, he started having a panic attack and shit. And it's just like, at least he tried to do something, I guess. Like, I'm glad he ain't in the army either. That shit sounded like it would traumatize him or fucked his ass up. Like, so I'm glad he didn't make it. I don't care. Like, this thing is sensitive. He's like vulnerable and shit. He's therapy and shit. Like, his shit is fucked up. So he comes back, and his homeboy is there, the one that like left her for dead in the woods and shit. Like, no, nigga, that was in the middle of motherfucking nowhere. She lucked up and met Lazarus. I mean, like, but he changed her to a motherfucker. Well, shut up, bitch. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. They orchestrated it this way. In real life, this would be some bullshit. And so, like, he's trying to find Christina Ricci, and like, she ain't home and shit, and all this other stuff. So they go to her house, and she ain't home. And his friend is mad at him, and she's just like, "You've been different since you've been with her, and you was having all these breathing problems and all this other stuff, and you was." And then this nigga was like, "I was having that in high school," and he was like, "No, you wasn't." Was trying to listen to this motherfucker, and then he basically told him that he like fucked Christina Ricci, and that's why he knew everything in his house was. And this nigga jumped on him and beat his ass. He jumped on this motherfucker. So well, I was just like, I wonder if Justin Timberlake could actually beat somebody. He just don't seem like a beat a ass type. He seemed like a get his ass beat type. I'm just wondering, I really would, especially like that young skinny version of Justin Timberlake, like extra beat his ass type. Like I mean, maybe he could. Them little skinny white boys from the country and shit, they be crazy and shit sometimes. They just be wilding out and shit on people. So you know what? It could go either way and shit. But horrible. Anyways, he beat his ass and then he go find Christina Ricci and see her dance at the juke joint. And so the next day, like, she up early in the morning playing his like wood guitar and shit, singing Amazing Grace or some shit. I forgot what she was singing, some song. And then like, here come Ronnie coming up behind Lazarus with a gun and shit. And this nigga G, he was just like, "Shoot me, nigga, shoot me." And he like saw the anxiety in him. I think he saw, I don't know. Maybe he's suicidal too. Who knows? He could be like, he chained this bitch to the wall. Shit. Whew. It's so hard to let that go. And so this motherfucker like calls the pastor. They have like a counseling session, and then like Christina Ricci's talking about all the stuff that happens in her body when she gets upset and anxious, and then Rodney talking about how she's his savior and shit like that. And then like they decide to get married. They were like, even though we're broken, we still belong together. And I was just like, I wonder how long this is gonna last. Like how, you know, and she ends up with like a little chain around her waist at the wedding and shit. And I was just like, this is her little like touchstone thing now. So that when they were driving away from the wedding, like here come the Final Destination trucks and shit. Like I mean, I would have been nervous too. I mean, I wouldn't have been as nervous as this nigga because I'm gonna live. No, you start getting too anxious and shit. You start closing your eyes and swerving and doing too much. Like, no, I'm gonna live. And so probably not as bad as him, but like they pulled over and he started having panic attacks. So she put her titties on his back. She did. She was laying across his fucking back and shit. And then she was like squeezing her fucking chain and shit, like, cause she was having a little arousal attack and shit. And like the chain was like a touchstone and helped ground her and shit. And I was just like, so she got something outside of this nigga to self-soothe with. This nigga still only has her. How long is this gonna last? Yeah, because no, she can like, because this will be a next step to like other things and shit, and I just feel like this might encourage her. If she can ground this way, maybe I can do this and go to therapy and blah 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 blah. Like he ain't done shit. Maybe he will. But then also, I just feel like she need to reconcile with the fact that she molested that little child and shit. Like she fucked up, dog, nigga. She did. Like she molested that little baby. She did. She did. So like, she gonna have to reconcile with that shit. That child is traumatized. I don't care. No, it is. I realized how deep it was when I was younger and I was watching True Blood. And like, you remember Suki's brother? And he was the hoe, right? And like, he was the hoe of the town, and he just would fuck anything, anybody, and blah 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 blah. And then one episode, his school teacher from high school came back to town, right? And he was just like, that was the woman that took his virginity, but like, molested him. And like she came back to town and she moved back to town and he was gonna fuck her again. And he was all excited, I'm gonna fuck the school teacher, I'm gonna do it again when she older, blah 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 blah. And he gets to her house and she's standing there and then he just has like a panic attack and shit. Like this nigga's fucked up, right? And basically like the trauma response was still in his body. Like it's still in your nervous system because you can't shock your nervous system with all of them like adult things that your body don't even know about yet and your mind can't even comprehend yet and not be traumatized by it. So that's why you got a lot of niggas that be ultra promiscuous, be having commitment issues, can't be chill and act normal and shit. Like it's just horrible, and then they normalize that shit. Like this nigga normalized this nigga getting molested and shit, and I was just so upset. And so I was just, she gonna have to reconcile with that shit, cause no, like if she don't deal with this fucking urge inside of her, like that's what sex addiction be doing and shit. It be making you, anything is a sexual object, anything, and so you don't have to be like a whole like child molester pedophile, like you just do this all the time, or you're just like attracted to children and shit. Like you just be impulsively just doing shit, and it don't matter the age or who it is. It's just fucked up, and then you end up actively doing it and having a pattern of touching children because you done touched a bunch of children and shit, and you didn't do nothing about it. So if she don't do nothing about it further than that fucking chain and shit, she more likely to do that shit again. Like she gonna have kids, and then her kids gonna be standing up there like, and you was gonna be attracted to, like you was gonna impulsively do some. See, like nah, she gonna have to reconcile with that shit. She gonna have to acknowledge that shit. That's fucked up. And so, she got her chain and shit, but that ain't enough. She got too much trauma and shit going on. And that urge is still there. It's still there. It's about decreasing in intensity and frequency. That's when you know the shit is healing. Doesn't happen as often. Doesn't happen as frequently. Now it's never going to get to perfection where it's never going to happen again. Like shit in life is going to make you have reactions and shit and push you over the edge of shit. But like, the shit would, it goes with it. Like somebody dies. Somebody would have to die, basically. Like that's how it starts to feel. Like that's when you actively are working on yourself and shit on a consistent basis. And so I don't know. She might work on herself, and they drive off into the wilderness, and I don't know where they're going. Maybe they going out of town, living somewhere else in the city. And being closer to therapy and shit. I just hope they actually get. I want them to get therapy because the audacity. This is a lot. Oh my gosh, there was so much nuances and shit to this. Like I can't even be 100% sure about some of the shit that happened in this. I can't. Like some of the shit is just wild. It's just like, it's uncomfortable. But it still was acted so well, and the plot was just so different and interesting and shit. So I just feel like it's one of them things you just gotta like watch and just decide for yourself. Just decide for yourself. Woo. But yes, this is my review of Black Snake. Black Snake Moan from 2006. Let me know what you think, respectfully. I hope you enjoyed, and later days.